This Jocks 94.5 podcast is brought to you by Millennium Satellite and Video. Log on to msbnow.com. TV excellence everywhere. That's Millennium. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning starts now.
All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 8 a.m. Hour number 2 underway right here on Jocks. We will preview ACC Media Days with Eric Mac Lain, who joins us now on the Higginbotham Hotline. We'll go right into it. And let's just talk after the top of the conference first, Eric. Where should our focus be when we get away from, we'll say, Miami, Clemson? I don't know if I should throw SMU there or not, because I don't feel like they're getting enough love right now. I don't feel like enough people are talking about what they might be this year. But who maybe else should we be discussing that could cause some damage in this conference this year?
Yeah, I definitely think you have SMU there. I think when we walk away from Media Day here in a week, we'll start stuff tomorrow. I think they'll be the second team that's going to be in Charlotte when the media poll comes out. I think people feel really highly about what the Mustangs are going to do. And Kevin Jennings, being a third-year starter at the quarterback position, was banged up for a lot of last year, and yet still, went for over 3,200 yards and through the air. And he's just got to cut down on the turnovers. If he does that, man, he's as dangerous as it gets in college football with what he can do with his legs and how good he is with his arm. I think the best thing for him going into this season is Rhett Lashley, head coach there at SMU. He believes they have their best stable of running backs that he's had, maybe since he's been there. So certainly, as you know, and as Greg knows, it helps everything when you have a run game and when you can be balanced and have that attack. So I certainly think SMU is one of those teams. Louisville and Keenholtz coming in, transfer from Ohio State at the quarterback position. They feel really good about him, and maybe as dynamic as a quarterback as this staff has had with Coach Brom leading the way. All they have done is win when he has been at Louisville, and can they get back to the ACC championship? The nice run they had in 23 there, with Jack Plummer, this guy much more electric with his legs. Lincoln there at quarterback, and just when the ball comes out of his hand, man, it's hot. It's coming out in an absolute hurry. And then I think it gets really interesting. Is Pittsburgh with Heinschel in year 2 going to be electric at the QB position? C.J. Bailey at NC State, not a lot of expectation from the Wolfpack this year. That's kind of when they thrive. And then, of course, the team in Virginia that was just in the ACC championship and literally a play away from being in the college football playoff. How do they reload? I trust their talent evaluation as good as anybody in the country. They can't go and hang financially with the big dogs and go and, pay for all these crazy transfers. But, man, they can get an undersized guy and get 5-star production out of him. So I think they did another great job in the portal, and I like the team that's going to run out there.
Looking at the ACC, it's really interesting, I feel like, this year. I feel like you have Miami that's a clear cut above. I have a lot of confidence that they'll be there at the end. But I'm having a tough time determining which of the three I like the most. So I'd love for you to tell me who it should be. SMU, Louisville, Clemson. Who do you think is next up in your eyes?
Well, I think there's more known commodities with SMU. I think just because of and really it comes down to quarterback, as it always does, right? I think we don't know what we're going to get from Clemson at the quarterback position. I saw, Vizina in one game last year as a starter against SMU, funny enough, and SMU's pass defense was just about the worst in the country. And he was fantastic. 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, everything you want. But they lost. They couldn't figure out how to get over the hump there, at home. But around him, I think Clemson is as talented as Miami. I think when you look at the overall body of work and who they have, it should be there. Now, it was there a lot last year, too. They had 9 draft picks, the most they've ever had, tied for the most they've ever had, and it didn't equate in the win column. But I just have to think, Coach Dabo Swinney is still one of the best in the world at what he does. I think there's a monumental chip on that shoulder that's not being created by him, right? Like he's been the master motivator and that great run that Clemson had. He's still trying to find ways to make them the underdog. Well, now you are. There's hardly anybody, I don't think, giving Clemson the credit, that they used to, which is understandable. So I think all that's there and that motivation that we're going to see from Clemson, it's a bunch of guys on the team right now that, man, they haven't really won anything. There's probably a couple leftovers from that ACC championship game a handful of years ago, but other than that, these guys haven't won anything, and so they're hungry. They're on the clock, and it's time to go. So I think it comes from one of those two. Louisville, I don't think quite there. I think they certainly can find a way, but it's going to be SMU or Clemson, and more known commodities right now from I know what I'm going to get on Saturday is SMU. So like I said, I will not be surprised when it's SMU and Miami come Friday and media day's over.
What do you anticipate from a former known commodity? Not that it's not known anymore, but it was normally in this conversation, and that's Florida State. Adding Ashton Daniels, a couple other pieces, both through the coaching staff and in the roster. Can there be any sort of a bounce back this season for the Seminoles?
It's funny, Cole. I'm actually higher on the Noles probably than most. I did a preview show for them the other day. I'm just looking at this roster. And I'm like, man, the top is nice. Like the top three receivers, I think, can be electric. Can they be healthy and stay on the field? Deuce Robinson's as good as it is in the country. I mean, size, speed, catch radius is freaky. I mean, this guy is tremendous. And now he's actually probably going to get a better passer in Ashton Daniels coming in. And so I think Ashton, what he did at Stanford, obviously we're very familiar with him and what he did in those last couple of games, at Auburn. Cole, you probably know more of that situation. I'm sure Jackson was paid a lot more money, so he had to be the guy. But I think Ashton at the end of the year was just as good as him, if not better. And that's what you saw, from the Auburn Tigers, almost beating Alabama there with the, heroics of Ashton Daniels. So what he brings to the table, I think, is going to be really interesting. I think it's certainly more of what Mike Norvell wants, kind of that balanced guy that certainly an athlete can use his legs, but just more of a polished passer than they had last year in Tommy Castellanos. And then defensively, just, they were upper middle of the pack, nothing outstanding, nothing that blew your mind. But, year two with Coach White at DC, a couple of guys that were young freshmen that needed to step up did last year. Well, now they're a year older. So I think we're still going to see some fight there. And obviously it's a much talked about thing that it's the hot seat in Tallahassee. But, I think getting to 7 wins is kind of the magic number to continue to build and keep going down there.
Yeah, I think they just have good frontline talent. I'm with you. The consistency and the buy-in, like they had good frontline talent last year. They had good frontline talent 2 years ago, and for whatever reason it didn't work. Like, why? Help me understand why.
Yeah, the 2 years ago thing, I mean, I think a lot of that had to do with quarterback. I mean, you bring a guy in that's a concrete statue that doesn't move in an offense that needs to have a dynamic guy back there is certainly, the thing. But last year, man, I mean, listen, I've never been a part of those teams, and I'm sure y'all haven't either, but when you beat somebody like Alabama, and it's your championship essentially, right? And, oh, my God, look at what we did. We did this and that. And they just thought they were better than maybe they were. They got kicked in the face against Virginia, and then after that, it was like they were so shell-shocked, they didn't know what to do. I mean, they still were able to put up numbers, the number one offense in the ACC the entire season, but it felt like a lot of guys were checked out. It felt like a lot of guys were, too good to do the extra stuff. And I think that's something, some growing pains that you have to go through that now, this staff is fully aware of. You see what it takes. And they went out and reloaded the entire offensive line. I think they got like 15 guys on the offensive line. Hopefully 5 of them are worth a dang, and they can put them out there and continue to be consistent. But you're right. I mean, talent has seemingly been there. It's just, is there enough talent, and can this staff get the most out of it consistently for a full year like they did in 23?
Is there a sleeper that you see right now? You're kind of on the edge of saying, hey, this team's going to break out. You want to get to media days, hear what the coaches, players have to say, kind of feel them out, but they're kind of knocking on the door for you to be a surprise team?
Yeah, I think Cal has that written all over him, man. When you have a quarterback, who's a true freshman in Jaron Kiave Sangapolatele that is electric, right? I mean, that guy was so good a year ago and seemingly didn't have any help. Well, now you bring in a new, head coach that played there in Josh Lupo, who was an amazing player, as good as of a recruiter as there is in the country. And now it's his show, and he kept that guy. I fully expected JKS to be somewhere else, but he's there, and they kept him. I think if Cal can get the defense to what Josh expects And if they can get a little bit more out of the run game from just one guy who's moved on, I think he's at SMU now, you need a little bit more help there. They'll be close, because when you have a quarterback that good, man, he can be an eraser. He's going to hide a lot of things. Avoiding the sophomore slump obviously will be fascinating, but I think Jaron, when you talk about next level good, he's got the size, he's got the anticipation, massive arm. I mean, rocket launcher arm, can do all the throws. He's going to be really fun to watch this year. And how much can great quarterback play, take you to places that maybe your team isn't quite ready, but that guy's good enough to carry you on his back there.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I think Cal is going to be much improved from a talent standpoint, but putting it all together in year one, I think will be a bit challenging. Virginia Tech's a fascinating one for me. With James Franklin coming down, I think they have a chance to be dangerous, but there's a lot of new, not that dissimilar to what we just talked about with Cal, a lot of new. So how realistic is it to expect Virginia Tech to surprise some folks this year?
Yeah, I think they certainly are, and I think the ACC needs that, right? We talk about, brands and elevating a conference and taking the, next step. Well, Virginia Tech's one of those brands. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever visited there, if Greg, you've ever called a game there, but they have been mediocre at best since I've been in this business, which I'm going into my 8th football season, which is crazy to think about. We have been there multiple times, and their football team has sucked, but there is not a seat in the house in that place. And it is as electric as it can be for as long as it can be. And then, of course, the team doesn't do their part and things fizzle out. I cannot imagine what that place is like with a top 15 team. I cannot imagine if they have something to truly cheer about and add on, what that place is going to be. And now you have a guy, right, and James Franklin, who I think, again, I talked about the Dabo Swinney chip on his shoulder. This guy's got a freaking boulder, right, because he's fired, he's embarrassed, he's one of the best in regards to winning percentage and things of that. And he's not taking an analyst role. He's not taking a TV job. He's going straight in to a program that recruits against the place that just fired him, that is in that kind of mile radius where they're going after the same guys. And I guarantee he'd love to see them one day. And so, what does that look like? How quickly can he compile the talent? Number one transfer portal, class in the ACC, a really strong class this next year, won't affect this year, but coming in. So he's already making waves. The financial investment that Virginia Tech has placed, bringing in a new athletic director, there's a lot of recommitment, reevaluation in Blacksburg right now that understands we've got to get this thing back. And so you bring in Grunkmeyer from Penn State, who I think was great the last 4 or 5 games of the year, saw great improvement there, fantastic tight end that was, obviously his go-to guy. And then you add some pieces, Quayshawn Brown from Duke, you keep a guy that was there a year ago that was really a burner. So I don't know, what that impact will be year one. I think, honestly, with the difficulty of the schedule, too, and just some of the unknowns with the amount of guys they bring in, if you're 6-6, win a 7th in the bowl game, that is a fantastic foundation for these guys to build. To then is that sleeping giant from Virginia Tech that, 2 decades ago was elite. Are they kind of back to that where they're keeping that DMV talent? They're keeping that 757 Virginia Beach talent that has been so prominent and such good players. And now they're a key stakeholder, in the ACC and in the national landscape.
Eric Mac Lain of the ACC Network, former Clemson football player, joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. We kind of skipped over some of the top of the league because we wanted to discuss others that aren't getting enough run. But Miami, kind of the standard right now, and filled a lot of holes with what they lost from a season ago. I feel like what they have left and brought in on the defensive line should offset a lot. Quarterback, obviously, we know bringing in Darian Minsup should offset the loss of Carson Beck. But are you as much of a believer as some that a couple of true freshman offensive linemen can be plugged in and that group can still be close to what it was a year ago?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting challenge. I will say I'm very high on the Canes. I mean, I think they're a national championship type team. I think when you look at the roster, it certainly is that. But as you just mentioned, that's going to be a focal point. But at the end of the day, I don't think I will ever be concerned about a Mario Cristobal, Alex Mirabal offensive line, right? Like those guys do it as good as anybody, and they, evaluate, produce, and develop the best of the best. And so, you've got a true freshman in Jackson Cantwell, which, Cole, I don't know if you've seen him in person. It's one of the biggest humans I've ever seen. I mean, he's 6'7", 320, 330, and strong as an ox. I mean, he might be their strongest offensive lineman as a baby, as a true freshman. A guy that was a thrower in high school, super explosive, but it's going to be that, baptized by fire. How quickly can you, change to this level and use all that athletic ability, to your advantage. You've got a 5-star in Sampson, who's just going to be ready. And I hope he's beside Cantwell. I hope he's at the left guard position, because I think that knowledge and that understanding will certainly help, Jackson. And then you've got some other guys that have played a ton, but just haven't been the guy. And Sampson's a part of that as well. So it's a lot like my kind of Clemson 2015 team, where it was a bunch of first-year starters that it was just their turn. And are they ready for the challenge? I think 100%. But there's so much around them. I mean, Malachi Toney is as good as anybody in the entire country, maybe the best player in the country. Mark Fletcher, we all saw what he did in the college football playoff run, and he's only going to have more momentum. And then the addition of, Darian Mensah, who was the second best passer in the world last year statistically from a yardage and touchdown standpoint, coming off of an ACC championship game. There's a lot to be excited about in Coral Gables, and I think those guys don't miss a beat. I think the Miami train is fully rolling and off the tracks.
Eric, great stuff, man. Thank you for helping us preview ACC Media Days. Always enjoy catching up with you. Let's do it again soon.
Y'all too, man. Thanks for the opportunity always. Y'all be good.
There you go. Eric Mac Lain joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline, discussing ACC Media Days, which begin tomorrow. And we'll have Andy Bitter on at 9 to talk a little bit more Virginia Tech. I feel like, kind of like what Greg brought up, the expectations are starting to mount in Virginia Tech. Like, I don't really know why, but they feel like they're starting to – there's a lot more positivity that's beginning to roll around the Hokies than I kind of feel is warranted year one. But, hey, maybe. Let's take a look at that. Take a look at kind of some of what else we're looking at from the FPI perspective as Auburn's season is concerned. We haven't really discussed that yet. First, I'll tell you about Gusty Goulas and the Gusty Goulas Group. You're looking for a home in Central Alabama, 205-542-1996 will get you in touch with the Gusty Goulas Group. You can also go to GustyGoulasGroup.com. Google Gusty Goulas Group. You're going to see over 850 5-star Google reviews. Since 2012, Gusty Goulas Group recognized nationally and locally as Greater Birmingham, Alabama's #1 team in homes sold. And the Gusty Goulas Group has served more than 3,000 home buyers and sellers in the Greater Birmingham area. Think about that. Over 3,000 home buyers and sellers in the Greater Birmingham area. Brokered by eXp Realty. They know the market. So if you're looking to get into a new home, if you're looking to get rid of your home in Central Alabama, call 205-542-1996 or go to GustyGoulasGroup.com today and start packing. Let's take a look at Auburn's FPI. Their thoughts on the season next on Jocks.
Don't leave Jocks back at the house. Download the Jocks 94.5 app and take us anywhere, in the car, at work, or at the game. Live audio, video, and podcasts on your schedule. The Jocks 94.5 app, wherever you may be.
All right, welcome back in. McElroy Cubelic in the morning, Tuesday, July 14th, 8:21 right here on Jocks. Going to talk some Auburn and FPI, their projected season. Warde Manuel, the athletic director at Michigan, set to take the podium soon to address some of the things happening there with his future job status as the Michigan AD. We'll bring that to you as quickly as we can on Jocks and get a reaction, obviously, from us and you on what's happening there around the Wolverines athletic program. Wanted to talk Auburn first, though. We've been teasing this, discussing this for a little while. But going back to what we talked about one thing earlier, Greg, and that schedule being a little bit ramped up with Ole Miss concerning the football power index from ESPN, they do have the Ole Miss schedule at number 5 this year. Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Kentucky, Ole Miss. Mississippi State would actually be next, then Florida. So your top 7 schedules as it pertains to being most difficult, strength of schedule, ESPN FPI has all from the Southeastern Conference.
Not surprising. I mean, if you look at I think a lot of people have kind of lost their minds about the whole, strength of schedule, leaning this way, leaning that way, what have you, as it relates to ESPN, the FPI, all this other stuff, the SEC, the favorable draw that the SEC gets as far as court of public opinion. Like, the reality is the SEC does have more talent than every other league. Just watch the NFL draft. It's not a surprise. But what you also need to acknowledge is that every single team has dudes. So the fact that when you look at the strength of schedule is going to favor the SEC. It's not anything that's internal. That's just the way things are.
I would agree. All right, let's look at Auburn. Projection from the ESPN FPI, 6.6 wins, 0.4% chance to win a national title. Percent chance to make the playoffs, Greg, actually 12%, which I think probably a little higher than I would have anticipated. But just the win total first. How do you view where the computers from ESPN see Auburn's season going at 6.6, we'll say 6.5 wins?
Well, a lot of people getting upset about it. That's better than they've done each of the last 3 years. That'd be improvement. How often has Auburn won that many games in the last 5 years? Not often,
nope.
Right? So you round up. Now you're sitting at 7 wins. That's been very rare for Auburn the last few years. So I think it's perfectly fair and understandable. And while a lot of Auburn fans will say, well, I'm only happy with 8, I think you need to look at what your program's been the last few years. So any growth is positive growth, and momentum created is momentum that didn't exist beforehand. So I think if they can get to 6 or 7, that'd be a great year.
Yeah, I think it'd be solid, specifically against that schedule. And depending on what some other teams that we feel like could go up or down on that schedule do, could end up being a great year if some of those teams end up exceeding expectations. What do you look at as maybe the most difficult part of the Auburn schedule? Because we talked about it yesterday because we were kind of talking about Florida, the opener against Baylor, Southern Miss, and then obviously it feels like that fork in the road game against the Gators. When you look through the rest of it, outside of just teams, like what sticks out to you from the Auburn schedule perspective with Vandy coming up next, at Tennessee, at Georgia, then LSU, at Ole Miss, Arkansas, at Mississippi State, Samford, and then at Alabama?
I feel like the schedule's not terrible. I don't know if you see it the same way. I thought last year's schedule was very difficult. We know the game at Georgia is going to be tough. The game at Ole Miss will be tough. The game at Bama will be tough. I think you can go get that game at Mississippi State potentially. I think it can be a tough game. I think it can be gotten. You get 2 of your swing games. I think Florida at home, Baylor at home, relatively. Couple of swing games at home, which is beneficial. Arkansas shouldn't be a swing game, but maybe it has been at times in the last few years because Auburn's lost a few that they probably shouldn't. So that one being at home, like the games that you got to win, I think are at home. I mean, what games at home do you think are losable? Auburn's performance at home last year was dreadful. So if they can just be better at home, they're going to be in a really good spot.
I kind of look at the schedule and I say to myself, can you survive October? And I honestly don't know, Greg, what that means from a best case scenario, but some of it will depend on what you do in September and November. But if you survive October, as in, number one, don't get blanked. Let's just say they got 2 in October. Let's say they got Tennessee and LSU. And you went down, lost at Georgia, lost at Ole Miss. I mean, you still got to be feeling pretty good about that, correct? Like I said, some depends on September. I mean, hell, if you ran the table in September, even if you went 2-1, and you get Baylor, Southern Miss, you go down to Florida, or let's say 2-2, you get Vandy, or you go 3-1. So you get Baylor, Southern Miss, Vandy, you lose to Florida, you go 2-2 in October. You got to be feeling pretty good about things, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, when was the last time, in all seriousness? So they have 4 games in October, like you referenced, at Tennessee, at Georgia, at Ole Miss, and LSU. If you go 2-2, that's tremendous. I think if you go 1-3, that's par. Like that to me is probably about, like that's par. Like that's all right. We didn't make a bogey. You go 0-4, bogey. 1-3, par. 2-2, birdie. Anything better, eagle or better.
Yeah.
Like to me, if we're using a golf analogy, that's kind of how it is.
What else would we use to talk college football? Golf analogies. I mean, I feel like it's like the Baylor game.
Even
if you can just get that drive in the fairway to, off number 1 tee and get a win, you're in great shape for the rest of your round. Like that sets the tone for your round. In all
seriousness, 0-4 can be overcome. I know it sounds terrible, but like it can be. It's just a bogey. It's not a double. You're not dead. Like 0-4 can be overcome if you can just win your games at home, start 4-0, which is possible.
Yep.
Not a guarantee, but possible. Let's say you finish, you go 0-4, so now you're 4-4 going into November, and you go 3 out of 4 in November. Feel pretty good about it. 7-5 season.
There you go.
Like, I think that's a really good season.
Feasible.
In year one with not a lot of new faces.
No, I would agree, and it's interesting to look at it the way you just laid it out, because I don't think a lot of Auburn fans would be able to be okay with that. But it does start with that momentum early, like you said. If you can handle your games at home, if you did find a way to get off to a 4-0 start, regardless of what happened then, I think what would happen if you started off great at home and let's say you struggled, you won one game or didn't win a game in October, I think a lot of Auburn fans, Greg, are going to start looking at the last few seasons and say, yeah, we've seen this before. Because it's almost, remember what Kentucky was for, God, I can't remember the years. It was early in the Stoops tenure when they would start like 5-1, 4-2, be off these great starts, like start 3-0, and then the end of the season would just collapse. And you're just like, okay, we've seen this before, and then he kind of got it turned around, and it didn't end up going that way anymore. I think Auburn fans, you'd have to be very careful that the fan base, the stadium, the energy, and even maybe inside the building wouldn't just say, oh, man, we've seen this. Like, here we go again.
Maybe, but it's also a little bit like we've seen the other side of the coin too. Like Tennessee, for example, would be sitting there at or around 500 through October 31st because the front half of their schedule with how things laid out was always tougher than the last 4 games. And the last 4 games of the year, they'd go 4-0, they'd finish 9-4, and everyone would be like, oh, heck yeah, all right, perfect. So like it can go in both ways. I know what you're saying, but I think for Auburn, like I just don't want to listen to I'm not saying you don't have to be optimistic. Like I want you to be optimistic. But the whole like, oh, I see 8 wins. I see 9 wins on this schedule. Like I don't know if I see that. If you get that, that's remarkable. It's not status quo. It's not, okay, that's where I expect to be. No, where you expect to be with this schedule is about 7-5, maybe 6-6. And then anything beyond that is really, really good. I would say they're ahead of schedule. And I know that's not easy to come by, but look at what you've done the last few years. You got to keep perspective. So the only time it sours is when you have unreasonable expectations.
Yep.
That's when things sour. That's when people start to get sideways. That's why Bama fans are sideways about last year's game because, man, they won 11, first road playoff win in college football playoff history. Make it to the top 8, and they're all beside themselves because the expectations were out of whack.
Yes.
Especially given what the roster actually was. So if you have reasonable expectations about what your roster is, then you won't poison the program. You just got to stay with it.
It's crazy to think about kind of what it could be and how quickly things could change off the first couple games of the season. All right. We will let you hear the Michigan athletic director discussing his situation in Ann Arbor next right here on Jocks.
Keys? Check. Seatbelt? Check. Jocks 94.5 on your preset? Locked in. Your ride's not ready till Jocks is on. Jocks 94.5, your daily drive done right. Turn it on, lock it in.
McElroy Cubelic in the morning on Jocks 94.5. Moved along here, did a little ACC with Eric Mac Lain. Did some Auburn and Alabama FPI win total projections. We'll do some more of those here in just a little bit. Before I do, we're going to move on here to Big Ten in just a moment. And if you're trying to move here in the Birmingham area, strongly recommend you consider using Crocker Moving Services. That's a local company owned by an Iraq War veteran, Eric Crocker. Crocker believes in hiring movers you can trust to complete full background checks and run drug tests on every single employee. There's a lot of moving companies out there, and this is one that you can absolutely trust. A lot of people that are applying and don't necessarily get picked because they can't pass one of the requirements that Crocker Moving Services had. They hold their movers to a higher standard, and that higher standard is passed on to you. So if you're looking for a free quote, go to crockermovingservices.com. That's crockermovingservices.com. Support your veterans by choosing Crocker Moving Services for your next move. All right. I think it's still going on, John said, or at least it's in the process of wrapping up. But Warde Manuel has come under a lot of scrutiny with what's transpired under his leadership at Michigan. He's been around for a little bit now. The Connor Stalions case, of course, was significant. Drew a lot of, I guess, negativity surrounding that situation. Of course, Jim Harbaugh's exit, Sharon Moore's hiring, Sharon Moore's firing, just a lot of things surrounding Michigan's program the last couple days. And the University of Michigan Board of Regents, they are expected to discuss an investigation into the culture of its athletic department. That's coming up on Thursday. So just a couple days from now, they're going to go and basically make a decision on the future of their athletic director, Warde Manuel, and whether or not he is going to be there long term or not. It'd be interesting. Now, they commissioned this investigation in December. That was right after they fired Sharon Moore due to the inappropriate relationship with a staff member. So I'm really curious to see where this ultimately ends up. But Warde Manuel had a chance to sit down and visit with the Michigan 247 site. And here's what he said here just a few minutes ago.
I can't respond to everybody reaction. Mm-hmm. To me, a lot of it is, people who have zero knowledge of what's going on are talking about things that are happening. Mm-hmm. And if it happens, it happens. Mm-hmm. But if it doesn't, then people go, well, I was told that, and confidential sources told me, and I wish we got to a point in this society where people would actually put their names to things. Mm-hmm. I did yesterday. Mm-hmm. I didn't say, hey, say it's a confidential source. I mean, this is the problem with the way things go on social media and media. I'm gonna react to everything that's a confidential source, and I don't feel obligated to do that.
Well, if you listen to him, and look, I don't disagree with him putting your name on it, the anonymous stuff. I understand his thought process there for sure. He's 58 years old. He's a former Michigan football player. He's been the athletic director at Michigan since 2016. He's never been cited for being involved in any of the scandals. And if you look at his tenure, the school has experienced a lot of very competitive success. Won the national title in men's basketball, won the national title in men's football. They've won it in men's and women's gymnastics multiple times. And his contract currently runs through 2030. And, who knows what the financials would look like in the event in which he was relieved of his duties. But it'll be fascinating to see exactly what goes down, because Manuel has been he's been steadfast. For example, he was at the center of the fight with the Big Ten over Jim Harbaugh's 3-game suspension because of that sportsmanship clause and the dealings with Connor Stalions and others. So he has been one of Michigan's biggest advocates. And yet now the Board of Regents is meeting about whether or not they are going to potentially keep him employed. So going to be fascinating, John. I don't know exactly where this is going to end up, but it is significant for sure, given his tenure and the success that Michigan's had under his leadership.
No, they've reached heights that they hadn't reached in quite some time, if not ever, under Warde Manuel. So I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan is at least doing what they can to try and keep them, because they've had very, very good success in the two major money sports in football and men's basketball. And the clip we played it's from the Big 1050 WTKA in Michigan, basically their morning show. They've been live since literally 8 o'clock. It's Sam Webb and Warde Manuel. It's just a Q&A, basically, just going at it. So I will give them credit to whatever. Again, that was just a 1-minute clip of a now 40-minute Q&A. So he's probably been saying a lot of stuff. But if he has anything to hide, Damien, he's come out here and addressing everything. So I'm gonna give him credit for that.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. If like the confidence in which he sounds like he has, it kind of feels as though like it's maybe just water under the bridge. But when you think of just the scope of everything that's happened in such a short time under his watch, like, I mean, he is the athletic director. So all of these things that happen, you know, they're reflected on him because they have to, the president and, you know, the board, they have to ask these questions of, hey, did you know these things? Did, you know, any of these things pop up, or, you know, did you do your due diligence? So, I mean, for him to, you know, be up on a podium and speaking about it, it kind of feels as though it may lean a little bit in his favor as far as what the future of Michigan athletics looks like with him at the helm.
And I do think, look, he hasn't been cited, right? So there's something to be said about that. But also at the same time, I mean, it's worth noting and worth acknowledging that if you haven't been cited, would he have, and remember, litigation's huge in all these aspects, right? Like, I've never been cited, but these things happened under your watch. Well, I wasn't involved. You know, how am I supposed to know that a coach is going to have an inappropriate relationship with a staff member? You know, I mean, those things are hard to forecast. It's not like you ever have that, and things happen. I mean, guys are going to act independent. You think if Warde Manuel knew of the situation surrounding Sherrone Moore, he wouldn't have acted differently? Of course he would have. I mean, how could you not under those circumstances? So I don't know. It'll be interesting, but it's important. You're probably wondering, well, why does this matter? Because Michigan has won basketball and football national championships in the last 3 or 4 years. So if the ultimate goal is for your school to compete for championships, having a competitor, if you will, in a little bit of disarray from an administrative standpoint, that affects you, and that affects the stability of their programs going forward. So it's interesting for sure, and it's something that we will continue to keep an eye on. I'm sorry, I said that it was 247. I'm sorry, like John said, it was.
Oh no, it's on the background of what they were doing. I said that it was, and you can see it says Michigan Insider, whatever radio station 247. It has all of that there. So yeah.
Either way, beside the point. It's something worth watching, and something that could very much have a pretty big impact given Warde Manuel's standing. He's been around for 10 years. The power he has in the Big Ten meetings when all the athletic directors get together. So worth watching and worth keeping an eye on here for the next couple days as well. Like I said, the Board of Regents will meet on Thursday about the culture of their athletic department after an independent investigation was commissioned by the Board of Regents in December. So we'll keep you updated as best we can. All right, when we come back, get back to more Auburn and Alabama FPI discussion next on Mac and Q.
Jocks 94.5 is live on YouTube every weekday, plus video shorts and podcasts. Find us at Jocks 94.5 and smash the subscribe and like button so you never miss a moment. Jocks 94.5 on YouTube.
McElroy Cubelic in the morning on Jocks 94.5. Appreciate all you being with us, and appreciate our friends up at Bill Smith Buick GMC. They are the GMC Dealer of the Year, the national champion of GMC dealers. All you got to do is take the short drive up to Coleman. You'll understand why. The deals on the lot are off the charts good, like a GMC Sierra 2500. This is the Denali Ultimate HD heavy-duty pickup. It's the nicest trim level on the interior, and yet the best for utility on the exterior. It's got that turbo diesel 6.6 liter. It's awesome. $99,030 is the list price. You can take $11,000 off that list price, get you out the door for $88,000. Most places, they're not marking down 2500s because the demand is there. Bill Smith's willing to, because they want to sell more vehicles than anyone in the entire Southeast. They've done that over and over and over again. They're number one in Alabama and will continue to be, because nobody else can match their prices. 75% of their business is repeat customers. That's because you have a better experience when you go with Bill Smith. Take the short drive to Coleman. You'd be glad you did. You can also shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuickGMC.com. All right, guys, looking at this Auburn FPI, and we've talked about this a bunch. Look, Auburn fans want to win 8 games. I want them to win 8 games. I hope they do. That'd be awesome. But is that a step too far, given what some of the analytic projections are right now?
Right now, I'd say yes.
Yeah, probably.
It's tough because I mean, and again, it's so new with Alex Golesh and everything, with everything that happened as far as, Hugh Freeze and the transfers going to and fro. It's just I don't know what to expect. But to me, if I'm an Auburn fan, I'm actually pretty happy if we just go to a bowl game. If we can get to 6 or 7, then we should be like, I should look at year one of Alex Golesh as if we're trending in the right direction. Because I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Auburn hasn't won their SEC opener since 2022. So when you look at how the schedule plays off, kind of the fork in the road of where these teams are going to be between Auburn and Florida to start off conference play, it's huge. It's magnified because, one, we know that coaching changes with John Summerall. You thought that he was going to be the next Auburn coach. And ended up getting Alex Golesh. You can kind of look at it and say, like, hey, we made the right hire if Alex Golesh gets that win. And then, of course, if John Summerall and Florida come up and beat Auburn on the Plains, it's, well, maybe we should have gotten him. But I look at Auburn collectively, and then when you look at their schedule, like, they don't have any quote-unquote gimmies. Like, they don't have those besides, Southern Miss and, no offense to Sanford. And like, it's every game to me, it's either a coin flip or the other team is better right now, if that makes sense.
No, I think it's totally fair. And, John, I look at Auburn, they haven't won more than 7 games since 2019. I think a good step in the right direction is bowl eligibility. And let's be honest, like, I don't know the answer to this. I really don't. I don't know if the team this year is more talented than last year. I don't. I can't say that right now. I think they could be. I think it's possible. I'm hopeful that they're better in certain spots, which will help them elevate. It might be a better quote-unquote team. But as far as individual pieces across the board with what they did in the portal last year and the personnel they had at wideout, the personnel they had on defense, I don't know if the team in general will be more talented. Doesn't necessarily mean they can't win more games. Just I don't know if they'll be more talented. It's just going to require them to be a lot better when it comes to winning in the margins, being good from a standpoint of turnovers, being good on third down, being good in the red zone. All those things are going to be required to improve if they are going to overachieve this season. So do you feel, I'll ask you first, Damian, do you feel like Auburn is a more talented team this year or last year?
Last year.
Yeah.
John, do you agree?
I think so. Talent-wise, overall, yeah, I would say so. Right now, yeah, I'd say so. Last year.
But that talent broke. For example, you're up 17-0 or about to be against a Georgia team, and as soon as things went sideways, they couldn't recover, right? Had a couple bad bounces against Oklahoma, couldn't recover. Had a couple other things that went sideways, couldn't recover. So maybe this team, because they've played together a little more, or they have the new lease on life after coming up from USF. They're now playing in the Power 4. Like, man, I'm going to go throw a punch. I got a chip on my shoulder. I'm going to prove everybody that the gap between what we did at USF and what we're doing at Auburn is not that significant. Maybe because this team's a little more weathered, a little more battle-tested, maybe they'll be able to overcome some of those mistakes. The Auburn team last year, just when things started to go a little sideways, started to crumble a little bit, and that can't happen if you're going to run a gauntlet like they have sitting right in front of them.
See, Greg, and to that point, do you think it's between the ears in situations like that? Because they found themselves like you could look at Oklahoma, you could look at Texas A&M. Even after they got rid of Hugh Freeze, you look at Vanderbilt. You jumped on Vanderbilt early, and you still end up losing that ball game. But do you think it's more between the ears than it is physical X's and O's?
Well, it's not physical. I mean, I think last year they had a quarterback that would get very, very, very conservative and would play not to make a mistake as opposed to pressing the accelerator. All right, I messed up. I'm going to go get it back right now. What's done is done. So be it. Let's move on. I missed a throw. No problem. Moving on. I did this. No problem. Moving on. What's in front of me, not what's behind me. And I think that can help with a steady quarterback that's played a lot of ball in Byron Brown. I think the team will react more positively to adversity this year. I really believe that. Like, he's been through it. He's made mistakes. He's thrown picks, and he's bounced back. You have to be able to do that, and it really does start at quarterback in a lot of ways. I mean, it really does. Quarterback's the tone setter for the whole team. That's the way it's always been. That's the way it'll always be. If your quarterback is a tone setter and is an unflappable force, the rest of the team will play that way as well. I'm the ultimate believer in the quarterback sets the tone mentally for the team. And if your quarterback's hard-nosed and tough-minded, you're probably going to be all right in those situations. If he's not, the team's probably not going to play very well when the going gets tough.
I agree. And that's the thing about Byron Brown. We know the talent. And again, when you're going against the competition he was going against at USF, it's more times than not, it's just not plug, play, and replicate everything that you did at South Florida because the competition is going to be different. But in the event that he does put up similar or close to similar numbers that he did at South Florida, does that kind of change your outlook on what Auburn can be in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's huge. I mean, you get him for 1 year, you help establish the tone, you help establish the messaging. Like you can set a place up for success in the future just by helping establish the foundation. Like you don't necessarily, he might not lead Auburn to the playoff, but Auburn could go to the playoff in the years to come if the right mental approach is established, if the right level of work ethic is established, the right level of camaraderie is established. All these things are absolutely possible. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying I think nowadays it's harder than ever to establish culture and foundation, but it must be established if you want to actually win. I've always believed that. Like culture wins.
Yes.
And everybody that always gets all bent out of shape about, well, we don't have enough 5-star guys. Guys, the 5 stars, they might be great, but I need guys that are buying in. I need guys that are going to do the little things, that are going to play and approach this game with a level of toughness and a level of chip on the shoulder and a little bit mad at the world. In today's era, and if you have guys that approach it that way, you're probably going to be all right. But if you have guys that come in thinking they're hot stuff, maybe not. It's going to be harder to get those guys to buy in because they can always go to another place and be paid handsomely when they enter the portal. So we'll see. It's going to be fascinating. I think Auburn's a fascinating case study this year. I'm really interested to see how they do. I think they're going to do well. I am a believer. I just don't know if the expectations of winning 8 or 9 are fair. If they end up getting there, amazing. He's shortlisted coach of the year. Golish is. But if they don't, it doesn't mean the program's not going in the right direction. All right, when we come back, talk about another first-year coach, Virginia Tech, James Franklin, next.
This is McElroy and Cubelic in the morning.
Scrolling with Haley. Join Haley Caronia as she scrolls through the biggest headlines.
If you haven't watched this show before, we do blind reactions. I have not seen these videos, so I am seeing them for the first time with all of you. We're going to implement the tinfoil hat time segments and all the stuff you know and love. And I'm going to finish the show and answer some of your questions. Someone asked me what made you get into podcasting, and I was producing podcasts for other people. And I was like, I could do this for myself, and here I am.
Scrolling with Haley. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Scrolling with Haley.
I am Haley Caronia. I scroll with the homies here in the live chat because there's a lot to scroll through on X, on Instagram, on TikTok.
Cutting through the clutter, one hot take at a time.
Love seeing you all in the chat before the show. I tried to jump in just a few minutes before to say hello. I love the chat interaction. Thank you for helping. But I do it to get all of the videos and all of the content that you won't find anywhere else.
Scrolling with Haley.
Just search that up and I will be there.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Scrolling with Haley. Join Haley Caronia as she scrolls through the biggest headlines.
If you haven't watched this show before, we do blind reactions. I have not seen these videos, so I am seeing them for the first time with all of you. We're going to implement the tinfoil hat time segments and all the stuff you know and love. And I'm going to finish the show and answer some of your questions. Someone asked me what made you get into podcasting, and I was producing podcasts for other people. And I was like, I could do this for myself, and here I am.
Scrolling with Haley. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.